Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for joining me today. We've got 10 new infinite or instant win combos with Duskmourn now that the whole set is out. I'm excited to talk about some of the sweet new combos coming to standard and older formats, modern, historic, explorer, pioneer, all those good ones, legacy even. Let's jump right into it with the first infinite or instant win combo, which with a Doomsday Excruciator. This is a 6 mana, all black, 6 black cost, demoned, 6/6 with flying. And when it enters, if it was cast, each player exiles all but the bottom 6 cards of their library face down. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card. Now, this is a very unique effect on this card. 6 mana to exile everything except for 6 cards. So the 2-card instant win combo here, and there's quite a few other cards that could do this with, but the simplest and the easiest one, if you wanted to just stick with one color, because you kind of just want to stick with one color given the casting cost of the Doomsday Excruciator. Altar of Dementia, which is a 2 mana artifact. It says sacrifice a creature, target player puts the top number of cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power from the top of their library into the graveyard. So essentially mills them equal to the power of the creature. Now, conveniently, Doomsday Excruciator mills both players down to exactly 6 cards and has exactly 6 power itself. So if you have Altar of Dementia out, you cast the Excruciator, mills them down to 6 cards left, and then sacrifice it to Altar of Dementia. Now they're down to 0, pass the turn, win the game. So 2-card combo, win the game instantly. The cool thing about this combo too, that I like, is that it kind of gets around. Sometimes mill strategies are weak against like Emrakul or things that kind of shuffle back into the deck. Doomsday Excruciator exiles most of the whole deck, so unless they have it in the bottom 6, which they could have in the bottom 6, but if it could get around sort of some of the weaknesses of a mill strategy by winning this way. So definitely a cool one to think about. This one. I believe it was legal in modern and older formats, but pretty cool 2-card instant win combo. All right, next up we've got the Gremlin Tamer, which is a 2 mana blue and white human scout 2/2. And it says Eerie, whenever an enchantment you control enters and whenever you fully unlock a room, create a 1/1 red gremlin creature token. So there's this old enchantment called Enchanted Evening, which says it is 5 mana and conveniently in the same colors as the Gremlin Tamer. It's blue or white hybrid symbols. It says all permanents are enchantments in addition to the other types. So these 2 cards together create infinite Gremlin tokens. So how does this work? If you have a Gremlin Tamer out, and you play an Enchanted Evening, that's going to trigger the Eerie effect, right? Because an enchantment came into play. So then a Gremlin, it'll create a 1/1 Gremlin. However, that Gremlin is now an enchantment. So that's going to trigger the Eerie again. And then that's going to create a Gremlin, which is an enchantment. So that's going to trigger the Eerie again. So that's going to, you get the idea. Going to basically go infinite here. The problem if you just have these 2 cards out is that it creates like an infinite unbounded loop, I believe. So that's a problem. The game will draw. I believe there's no way to kind of get out of that loop. I think it has to be a draw. So you need some way to sacrifice one of these 2 cards or sacrifice the creatures to do damage or some effect. Like when a creature comes into play, it does damage to an opponent, something that will actually end the game as this loop continues. I thought Goblin Bombardment might be one of the best ones because it's just a good card on its own. So you could kind of play that in addition to these 2 cards. So if you had Goblin Bombardment out, you could just sacrifice the gremlins and do damage equal to infinite, basically, to any of your opponent's creatures or to their face. So that is kind of a 3-card combo. You kind of need 3 cards for this to actually win the game, but 2 cards to essentially go infinite. Okay, next up we've got the Screaming Nemesis, which is a 3 mana, 3/3 spirit, red spirit with haste. It says whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target. If a player is dealt damage this way, they can't gain life for the rest of the game. So kind of a simple 2-card combo here. Star of Extinction is a 5 mana sorcery. It says destroy target land, does 20 damage to each creature and each planeswalker, right? So if you have the Nemesis out, you play the Star of Extinction, 20 to everything, and 20, you can redirect the damage to your opponent's face. Hopefully they're at 20 life, and that just ends the game. If not, then they go to pretty low and they can't gain any life anymore. So that's pretty good too. But 20 damage, probably going to win you the game with these 2 cards in combination with each other. All right, that's a pretty simple one. Let's go to a few with the Jolly Balloon Man. This is a pretty cool new card. A Boros 3 mana human clown legend, a 1/4 with haste, and it says 1 mana tap, create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control, except it's a 1/1 red balloon creature, in addition to its other colors and types, and has flying and haste. Sacrifice at the beginning of next end step, activate only as a sorcery. So I thought this card has a few different combos. I'll show you another one after this slide, but this is a standard legal one, and could be potentially useful with this forensic researcher combo that hasn't really taken off in standard, but it certainly still exists. With Deep-Root Pilgrimage out, which is a 2 mana enchantment here on the right, it says whenever one or more non-token merfolk you control become tapped, create a 1/1 blue merfolk creature token with hexproof. And a Forensic Researcher says it's a merfolk, 3 mana, 1/3, tap to untap another target permanent you control. So you can't target itself, so you need essentially another copy of itself, and you can continue to target the other copy of itself and continue to target each other so they can tap and untap each other continuously, and then that will continuously trigger the Deep Root Pilgrimage over and over again to make infinite blue merfolk creature tokens with hexproof. So some way to go infinite. What I kind of like about this, it would force you to have like a 3-color deck, but the fact that the Jolly Balloon Man is kind of a pretty decent card on its own that could copy some of your other merfolk to get value just throughout the game. Or when you have these two, and they also curve nicely into each other. Turn 3, you can play the Deep Root Pilgrimage. Turn 3, the Forensic Researcher, and then turn 4, the Jolly Balloon Man, and activate. Target the Forensic Researcher, and then you can go infinite on turn 4. So, kind of the dream scenario there, but certainly possible. And the cards are kind of decent on their own. So maybe there's some sort of Jeskai Merfolk deck that wants to play all 3 of these and try to go infinite. Okay, and next up we've got the Jolly Balloon Man again. This one is sort of an instant win combo, not just an infinite creature token combo, but and is potentially 1 turn faster. And I believe all these cards are legal in Modern. So if you went turn 1 Birds of Paradise, turn 2 Village Bellringer, which is a 3 mana 1/4, and it says when it enters the battlefield, untap all creatures you control. Then turn 3, you could play the Jolly Balloon Man and activate it, right? If you had birds on turn 1, and copy the village Bellringer. When that comes into play, the copy of it, the 1/1 red balloon Village Bellringer, comes into play. That will untap your Birds of Paradise and the Jolly Balloon Man and anything else you have, but it will then let you tap the birds and the Balloon Man again to make another copy. Comes into play, untaps the birds and the Balloon Man, lets you tap them again, makes another copy. And the good thing is all of these copies both have haste and flying, so you can make infinite Village Bellringers that are 1/1 balloons with haste. So you can just win right away on turn 3, potentially going infinite damage on turn 3. So that's pretty cool and pretty powerful. Maybe there's a deck that would want to do that in Modern potentially. All right, let's go to the Leyline of Transformation. There's a lot of combos with this card. So I only picked 2 that I thought were kind of the simplest. There's some that are very convoluted that require multiple pieces, but I wanted to point out actually 3 different combos with this that only require kind of 2 pieces to really win the game. So if you don't know what this does, it's a leyline. So if it's in your opening hand, you can just put it into play, which is really nice. And it costs 4 and 4 mana blue enchantment. When it enters, you choose a creature type, and creatures you control are the chosen type in addition to their other types. The same is true for creature spells you can control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. Right. So what are the combos here? Number 1, this is standard legal, which is kind of cool, and probably a deck I'm going to build and try to play on this channel at some point because it's just fun, janky, standard combos. Why not? You got the Realm Breaker, which is a 3 mana artifact. The first ability you're not really using, but you can use this kind of to ramp yourself up, which is kind of useful. It's a 2 mana to tap. Target opponent mills 3. Then you put a land from their graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. And then if it would leave, you exile it instead. But we're really using it for the 10 mana ability. You can sacrifice it, and then you search your library for any number of Praetor cards and put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So with Leyline of Transformation, you can name Praetor, and then every single creature in your deck is a Praetor. So you can, when you activate Realm Breaker, you can get every single creature from your deck into play. And so if you have any sort of creature that gives all your creatures haste, so for example, if you have like Imidane's Recruiter in your deck, that would be a Praetor. You could just put that out, give all your creatures +1, +0, and haste to attack for the win with any number of creatures that you have in your deck. So definitely game-winning play with Leyline and Realm Breaker. And the same is basically true for the World Tree. World Tree, if you don't know what this does, it's a land that comes into play tapped. You can tap it for green, and if you have 6 or more lands, all your lands can tap for any color. And then if you tap for 10 mana, so 2 of each symbol, although the mana fixing on it kind of helps you get to 2 of each symbol here, you can sacrifice it and search your library for any number of God cards and put them onto the battlefield. So again, same idea here. If you name God with Leyline of Transformation, then the World Tree is going to be able to pull out every creature in your deck, put it into play for 10 mana, which is pretty nice for kind of just being a land, and you don't really have to even devote any non-land spaces into your deck besides the Leyline to kind of get that combo off. So that's pretty cool, and you could kind of play both of these in maybe a ramp strategy. I'm not really sure exactly what, but the World Tree legal in Explorer, Pioneer, and Modern, of course. So you could play in those formats, and Realm Breaker would be could be a standard combo as well. So let's look at another Leyline combo here, the blue Leyline. So this is a very simple one. I believe this is Modern legal. The Turn Timber Ranger, which is a 3-mana 2/2 Elf Scout ally, and it says whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield under control, you can put a 2/2 green wolf creature token onto the battlefield, and if you do, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So if you name ally with the Leyline of Transformation, the wolf that comes into play from the Turn Timber Ranger will be an ally, and then it would trigger the first ability. So when you play it, it triggers its ability once. So you get the wolf, and then the wolf comes into play, and that will be an ally, so then it triggers that ability again. And so you kind of go essentially infinite with this, right? Because then the token triggers its first ability, the first ability triggers the token triggers the first ability. It also creates infinite +1/+1 counters if you want that on the Turn Timber Ranger, so you could like fling it for the win, or anything that would be able to stop this combo. So again, this is, I believe, an unbounded loop. So you would need some way to stop this. But by himself, it kind of goes infinite. So anything that could kill the Turn Timber Ranger, or sacrifice it, or sacrifice the Leyline, that would be a way to interrupt it and get infinite tokens and not draw the game. So that's a pretty simple one. All right, let's go to the Leyline of Resonance. This card is really good, and I think quite powerful, and I made a video about how powerful I think this is like a week ago, if you want to go back and watch that. But there's a lot of interesting combos, a lot of different ways to get even turn 1 kills with this card in Modern and Legacy. This is kind of the simplest one I could think of. So if you don't know what this does, again, it's a Leyline, so if it's in your opening hand, you can put it into play, otherwise you have to pay 4 mana enchantment. So red enchantment. And when it says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single creature you control, copy the spell. You can choose new targets for the copy. So really good with pump spells and all that kind of stuff. Anything that targets your creatures. In Legacy, there's a card that's legal. That's not legal in Modern because it got banned because it's a pretty powerful card. But Blazing Shoal, which is a 2 red and an X instant arcane spell. It says you can remove a red card with mana cost X in your hand from the game rather than pay its cost. And target creature gets +X/+O, so it pumps the power of the creature equal to the X here. So if you exile, for example, Reaper King, or really, it doesn't matter, any sort of red card that has converted mana cost 10 or greater, then essentially that's 0 mana to give a creature +10 power. However, if you have Leyline of Resonance in play on turn 1, or turn 0, essentially, because it comes into play from your opening hand, the Blazing Shoal will get copied, and so essentially you're getting plus 20 power to a creature. Now, if you just go Mountain, Swift Spear, or any sort of creature, 1-mana creature with haste, Swift Spear just comes to mind, Goblin Guide, because they're pretty playable cards on their own. If you just played Mountain, Swift Spear, and you had Leyline in your opening hand, you go Blazing Shoal for 10, gets copied for 20, and then Prowess plus this 1 power, that's 22 damage on turn 1. Not bad, and pretty decent. It is a 4-card combo. There's some redundancy in terms of there's a bunch of other red cards that cost 10 or more. Dragonstorm's coming to mind, I believe. And there's a ton of obviously 1-mana red creatures with haste that you could use to target. So, not completely out of the ballpark. The interesting other part of this combo is that you can't really counter the Leyline. You'd have to, if they're going to like Force of Will, they could counter the Blazing Shoal, but then you'd still get one of the copies to go through and attack for like 12. So, yeah, an interesting combo. I don't know if this will see play in Legacy, but certainly has potential to be really powerful. And an instant win, turn 1 kill. So let's move on to a few with the Unstoppable Slasher, which is a pretty cool new card. This is a legal in standard, this combo, which is a 3-mana 2/3 zombie assassin with Death Touch. And most importantly, it says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, they lose half their life rounded up. So the way this works is you hit them potentially for 2, and then that would trigger, and then they'd lose half of whatever their life is. However, if you have Bloodletter of Alcazaz out, Bloodletter of Alcazaz, if you don't know what that does, it says if an opponent would lose life during their turn, they lose twice that much life instead. So whatever half of their life is, they're losing double that. And so it's just an instant kill. And you can do this as early as turn 4. Potentially, when Landwar Elves rotates into standard, you could potentially do this on turn 3. In theory, so that would be kind of cool. But it seems like a decent combo. Unstoppable Slasher also has this text at the bottom, which I didn't read, but if it dies and has no counters on it, return it to the battlefield tapped under its own control with 2 stun counters on it. So some resilience against removal, which is kind of nice. When you are thinking about your combo pieces, you kind of want them to have some resiliency, but it's interesting. You could want to have some cards that give it unblockable, which there's a few. There's like a new blue sorcery that gives it unblockable. It draws a card, so that you could use that, or a land that can give it unblockable. So there's different ways, and maybe you're just mono black here, and you're just wanting to remove your opponent's creatures because that's what black does best, and just attack for the win that way. So I think this has some potential of seeing play competitively in standard. We'll have to see. It's a little clunky and vulnerable to removal on the Bloodletter, of course, but yeah, an interesting 2-card combo. Both of the cards are pretty decent on their own, which is also important when you're evaluating combo. Okay, last up, we've got another combo with the Unstoppable Slasher. This one is very different because it uses Solemnity, which says players can't get counters, and counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. So essentially, what this does is if you have any ability to sacrifice the Unstoppable Slasher, it would die, and it would have no counters on it, and then it would come back, return to the battlefield, right? But then it wouldn't be able to put the stun counters on it. It would come back tapped, but it wouldn't be able to put the stun counters on it. So then you could just sacrifice it again if you have a sacrifice outlet that doesn't require any mana, and then it would die and then come back, die and come back, die and come back. So you could just infinitely sacrifice the Unstoppable Slasher, which is kind of cool. I mean, you could play both of these combos in the same deck if you wanted to, just to kind of maximize your Unstoppable Slasher combos. But Goblin Bombardment, again, I think is maybe one of the better cards that you'd want to play in this kind of strategy here, just because it will instantly be able to target your opponent's face, and you can just win the game right away, and it's a pretty good card on its own. So infinite damage, infinite sacrifice, but there are other sacrifice outlets that you could play to kind of go infinite with whatever the effect you get from those sacrifice outlets are. Ultra Dementia, for example. You could use that as replacement to mill out your opponent, things like that. So that is, I believe, yeah. So that's the first 10 instant win or infinite combos with Duskmourn. I've got 10 more coming. So stay tuned to the channel if you are interested in that. And I'm definitely planning to build a bunch of new combo decks. I mostly focus on standard, but also play some historic or explorer from time to time, but mostly standard combos. So the standard combos you saw in this video will probably be made into a deck on this channel with gameplay coming soon when Duskmourn drops on Arena. So stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate you. Let me know if there's any cool combos that you can think of with Duskmourn that you're excited to play with or brew around. Anything I missed in the video. Um, really appreciate you watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.